Welcome back, everybody. Idiot RCs here. Today we're taking a look at the Milestar Patagonia by RC4WD Drive, the Class 2 Patagonia, 475 by 1.7-ish on a 1.9 wheel. These come in RC4WD Drive's X2S3 compound, which is more of a trail compound than it is a rock crawling compound. The X2SS is kind of their super soft and sticky. So we'll see how the X3 does here on the rocks. We are crawling on sandstone, which is a pretty high grip surface, so I don't imagine it'll be too bad. One thing to note with the Patagonia is the foams that it comes with are absolutely atrocious. They were cut directly out of your grandma's couch cushion and put into these tires. They're way too firm for anything practical. I understand RC4WD Drive is a scale tire or a scale truck company, but even a fully scaled out hard body rig, unless you're driving an 18-pound rig, I don't see those foams being useful on anything. So in these tires, I am running Proline foams, just simple, not dual stage, just simple Proline single stage open cell foams that come in all of their tires. It's a much softer foam than the RC4WD Drive. I think it's going to give it a much fair opportunity to perform. I am a little nervous on how that's going to affect it on side hill, but we will find that out soon. If you've been watching my videos, you might notice that over the last couple weeks, I've been releasing one a week, but if you see similarities as far as when they were recorded and everything, that's because I have recorded 10 videos over the last 3 days. Once a month, I come out to a lake here in Kansas at a state park, and that's where I do most of my rock crawling. There's just not a lot of places that I enjoy doing it closer to home. I'm about 2 hours from my house. There's some decent places to do it, but this is where I really like to be. So this is where I'm shooting, at least for the time being, all of my videos, or at least most of my videos. And so that's why the time for me is hours, the time for you is probably months if you watch all these videos. And another important thing to note, you will notice that I talk in pretty much every video about how Tire Rack, the Element trail walker that I use for testing tires and other components, his daily drivers are Duratrax fossils. I talk about fossils in pretty much every video and how I compare tires to the fossil to see if it is at least that good, and that is kind of what I base my recommendation off of. However, I don't have a video of the Duratrax fossils actually taking the course. I planned on that being my first video. I loaded up the truck with the cooler full of food and beverages for the weekend. I made sure I had my sleeping bag so that I could sleep in the 29-degree temperatures it was here at night. I made sure that I had plenty of batteries charged, that I had my solar panel with me and my charger so I could charge on the fly if needed. I made sure I had spare parts for the truck. I made sure I had spare batteries for my transmitter. And I forgot the Duratrax fossils. It's not called Smart RC, guys. It's called Idiot RC, and that's the reason why. So, let's get on with the review of the Milestar Patagonia by RC4WD Drive. Alright, coming onto the rock, we have a fairly easy entry onto the rock. Not too many tires struggle with this. And what we want to do on this first obstacle is test our side hilling capability and our capability to reposition on the side hill. Now again, I am running those very soft Proline foams in the tire, the single stage open cells, because the shit that comes with these tires is unforgivable. And the sidewall, I can already tell you, is collapsing more than I'm going to want it to. We're going to have some sidewall support issues. That's extremely common with single stage open cell foams. That is the one advantage that the RC4WD Drive foams would offer, is it would side hill well. So what we're going to be having to do here is we're going to be looking to see if the tire slides sideways an excessive amount, and then we're going to probably have to take a little bit shallower angle and see how it repositions. And we're going to have to do that because of the foams in this tire. And what I typically will do is, if I run a tire on a single stage open cell foam, which most of the time I will test a tire on whatever insert it comes with, barring times like these where it's not even fair to test it on the trash that comes in this tire. So I will test it on a single stage open cell foam unless the tire comes with a dual stage foam or something, and then I'll test it on that. And then depending on how the tire does, if it shows me some promise, I'm going to do a retest later with better foams. There's certain tires, I'm probably not going to do it with every single tire, but if a tire does decent, if it shows me promise, I will do a follow-up video, kind of a secondary review of optimizing that tire, of putting a different insert in it. Sometimes maybe I'll do some lug work on the tire, depending on what it is, you know, to improve the tire and make it better. I'm not going to do that with every tire. I'm only going to do that if I think that it's going to be worth my time. So now we're trying to turn up, and that driver's side front tire, the sidewall is completely just collapsing. If I keep turning up, that's just going to roll out. So what we're going to do is we're going to back up and reposition ourselves like this a little bit and turn up sharp and try to get that rear end to come around before the truck rolls out. Shallower on the steering. That passenger side front tire is starting to lift. If we can set it back down, nope, we're gonna roll out off here, I think. Ooh, maybe I can slide that rear. That was good. That rear slid just a little bit. Oh, we're gonna roll out. So what I'm seeing so far with the tire is decent lateral grip. It's not sliding an excessive amount. It seems to have a good amount of forward drive. Right now, off camera, I'm testing loose traction grip, loose surface traction, I mean, and it did well there. The main issue we're combating right now is going to be a foam issue. So we're going to get back on the obstacle, and we're going to take the shallower side hill line up higher on the rock. Again, already collapsing that sidewall. Already going to give us issues. We're going to have to cut in real early. Oh no. Now we're sliding. Now the front end is sliding. That's a little bit, I think, due to compound, maybe tread pattern. I think mostly it's due to that sidewall. That sidewall on the front driver tire is really collapsing. Now it's causing the passenger side to rise up. We're going to try to reverse and recover. So we're not going to have a good side hill showing today with the Patagonia, largely due to insert. However, it is worth recommending or worth pointing out two things. Number one, the bead locks that I'm running on this tire are a narrower track width than what I normally run on this truck. So that is going to affect side hill a little bit. I have lost about 4 or 5 millimeters in total track width on the truck. And the other thing is the G-Made 1905, sorry about the wind noise, it's starting to pick up here. The G-Made 1905 did this test exactly in the same conditions right before this video was shot. So again, for you, those videos are probably a week apart. For me, they're 15 minutes apart from when I stopped recording the 1905 video and I started recording this one. The 1905 was on soft single stage open cell foams. They weren't Proline foams. I think they might have been a little bit more firm than these, but for the most part on the same phone, on the exact same bead lock, on a silver version of this exact same bead lock. And I was fighting the same challenges, and I was able to do this obstacle with that tire with minimal concessions. So we'll see how the RC4 drive does, but the reason I'm bringing that up is because I do think that we are having some limitations in either tread pattern or compound on the side hill here, but these foams are not helping me at all. And I don't even know, as of right now, I'm kind of wondering if I'm going to be able to complete this obstacle. That's gonna roll out again. So what we're going to try to do is get the rear of the vehicle to slide down and see if I can at least turn the rig around on the rocks. That'll prove something. But as of right now, nope. All right. As of right now, that is a fail. I believe that that is a fail 100% due to insert. I think that this tire could do it with a good dual stage insert in it. So most likely this tire is going to make a comeback with a dual stage, but oh, here, you want to watch some loose surface grip? Here we are in very soft, almost sand. Our slider gets hung on the corner there, and we bring it around. I'm going to call it for this obstacle. I don't think that we're going to get a better showing than what we've already seen until I get a different insert in there. So I will, at some point, get a different insert in this tire, and it will at the very least try that obstacle again. But so far, we've got the first obstacle of the course is a fail. I can't get the side hill. So we're going to come around here, and we're going to drive down to the rest of the course. I've been eager to test this tire, and I want to give this tire as many opportunities as I can, because I think that the Patagonia is increasing in popularity due to Matt's Off-Road Recovery. Matt's Off-Road Recovery, if you're not aware, is a YouTube channel, and he has several vehicles, I believe 2 vehicles that he runs Patagonias on. I know he has a YJ Cherokee that he runs them on, and he also has like a Corvair wagon, and I'm pretty sure that runs Patagonias as well. And what we've been seeing in the scale world are quite a few people building Matt's Off-Road Recovery rigs. J Concepts released the Corvair body that he runs, and you can get YJ. Is it a YJ? It's a square body Cherokee. Sorry, I'm not a Jeep guy. I don't know all their lingo. It's the good Jeep that existed before people started putting fucking ducks on everything. But anyway, you see a lot of people building scale representations of those trucks, and I know he runs Patagonias on the Jeep. I think he runs it on the Corvair as well. And so I think this tire is gained a lot of popularity, and a lot of people are going to want to know, how good is it and how can I make it better? So our second obstacle here, we're testing mostly, that is a good amount of forward drive. So that was the kind of the easy line onto the obstacle, but it pulled right up that without issue. Before I got on the course, I took the ambient temperature and the surface temperature of the rocks. Ambient temperature is up to 56 degrees. The high today is supposed to be about 62. Ambient temperature was at 56. Temperature of the rocks. Temperature of the rocks was right at 51. The reason I bring up temperatures in the videos is because it matters. It does affect how tires perform. Especially when you start getting, right now we're in a very comfortable range. When you start getting really hot and really cold, it really impacts the performance of a tire. Okay, we're going to take the more difficult line on, where we don't have anything on the ground to push against, and see if the tire can pull itself up using the overdrive in the truck, or technically the underdrive. And we don't have enough grip to pull ourselves up, but can we get up with a little bit of wheel speed? A little bit of fall back there, but with enough wheel speed we can get right on, and then we can walk right up it. So that is a pass for the second obstacle, but as you know, we tend to run this one 3 times. So let's get our third pass in, just to try to be consistent, where I can remember to be consistent. as I've mentioned, the Trail Walker is a fairly stock truck. Nothing overly fancy going on with it. It's mostly Element parts. The shocks on the truck are Element. They're associated, the gold anodized shock bodies, or bronze, whatever. And they are built with a SE shock kit. So they're the mini spring shocks, but they're not deluxe shocks. They're not anything fancy. They're essentially Element SE shocks with the anodized body, the anodized aluminum body from Associated. And I am running low C mini T springs on it rather than the Element springs. There's a slight difference in spring rates there. Nothing too dramatic. I was running the Element springs for a long time. I just happened to have a whole bunch of mini T springs and put them on there. If you want to convert your SE springs, the gray plastic body SE springs, to have a aluminum body, you can do so. The only thing you will need besides the aluminum bodies is you will need to buy shock pistons from a regular enduro shock, because the way that they got away with using plastic body on the SE shock and still having it be durable was the shock body's thicker. So therefore, the piston is smaller diameter. So if you put an SE piston in a non-SE shock body, it will be too small. So if you have a Enduro SE and you want to put aluminum shock bodies on it, you can do that. Just make sure that you also get new pistons. If you have SE shocks and you have a full set of regular Element shocks, you can just swap some parts around and rebuild your Enduro shocks with the SE kit, the mini spring kit. And you can also buy the mini spring kit for like $17 to convert any shocks, any of your Element shocks. It also works on TRX4 shocks. It goes, the spring cups will go screw right onto GTS's. Uh-oh. Don't roll out, don't roll out, don't roll out. Our third obstacle here. Pulling up onto this obstacle presents a small challenge because there's not a lot of grip on the ground because we have just loose pebbles there pretty much. And so the tire needs to hook the corner, the edge of that rock, just like that. That was a good showing from the Patagonia. Some of that is going to be attributed to that soft foam, allowing the tire to conform to that surface. And now we're going to see how it does on a little less of an extreme side hill, quite a bit less. That first side hill, there's several challenges with that side hill. Obviously, one of the challenges is that it's a somewhat steep side hill. It's about, I don't think it's quite 45 degrees. I think it's probably about 42 or 43 degrees. But the surface of the rock is extremely uneven. And so you don't have a smooth surface, so there's a lot of elevation change, a lot of divots and pockets on that rock that introduce some challenges. So it is a difficult side hill. It's steep. We've got the uneven surface. We're trying to reposition. It's as much of a test of insert as it is of tire. And so when a rig fails that obstacle, I don't worry too much about it until I test it on a better insert. Now here, we're definitely being affected by that soft insert. Passenger side tire collapsing more than I want it to, so we're going to try to walk up there now. Because my steering servo is failing, I don't have the torque to turn while I'm pushing into that rock. There we go, there we go, up and over. Alright, now we come up here and make that same mistake just about every time. Patagonias are actually honestly doing a little bit better than I thought they would. RC four-wheel drive has never blown me away with their tires, but I'm liking these quite a bit. I like the look of them. I think they're a good size. I like the tread pattern. I think with a different insert, this might be a pretty decent tire. losing some steering again. If this is the first video you're watching, the servo in this truck is a 9i mod 50 kg, and it is starting to fail. We've lost a lot of torque, especially turning towards driver's side. And the last couple tires I've tested, it's been giving me trouble, and it's impacted a couple obstacles. So I've had to give some rigs a couple free resets because of that. That technically was an obstacle. Doesn't give most tires a problem, but if you don't have good forward drive, it's a little difficult because the surface of that rock is pretty slippery. But the Patagonias have no issues at all. Now we come up to an obstacle that can be kind of challenging for some tires to pull up on. There's several ways on. One of them is using this rock over here. Some tires can bump on with wheel speed. We like to try to pull it here on this corner first, because if the lugs and the compound are good, it will hook the corner just like that and crawl right up. So that was a good showing. And if I drive properly and pay attention to the rig and not the camera, I know it's starting to go off screen for you. I will correct that in just a second. So that's a pass. That obstacle is hard to drive from this angle, from where I'm standing, because of where I have the camera placed. This is the best angle for you to see, but for me driving, it's not the best angle. But until I get a lapel mic, I need to stay by the camera to talk, because, I mean, you need to hear what I have to say, right? This part is not really an obstacle. It's more of the path to get to our next obstacle, but a few tires have had issues with this. It's loose surface, and no issues with the Patagonia. Good showing there. And as we come down here, again, servo biting me in the ass. What we want to do is have enough slip on the rear tires to allow it to slide down here without sliding so fast that the ass comes over the front. And I have taken a little bit of a bad angle on there, so I really need to, there we go, set that rear end back down. Yeah, front tire's holding well, rear tire's sliding just enough. Now, with a recovery at the end, we're going to call that a pass. I think the foam could have been part of the culprit there. If we had a little bit firmer of a foam in front, or something, dual stage, it wouldn't allow as much collapse. That front wouldn't have collapsed as much, and that would have held better. This is another descent. Same issue there. That driver's side foam collapsed completely, which almost let the rear of the truck come around. Now is our first real difficult obstacle of the course. We've only had 2 tires that I've had on video so far finish this, the Power Hobby Armor and the G-Made 1905. We will see if the Patagonias can make that number 3. Now, that's not the only 3 tires that I've ever passed this obstacle with. It's just the only 3 that I've ever got on camera. I will tell you that there are going to be a lot of tires that I test that is not my first time driving the tire. It's just my first time reviewing the tire. Initial entry on the obstacle looks good, but now we're having a little bit of just searching for traction. The surface of this rock is somewhat slick, and again, as common with sandstone, we have a lot of unevenness to the surface of it, which means we get a lot of bouncing and slide back. And I think what we're going to have to do is what we have to do with most tires, is give it a little juice without giving it too much juice, and try to hook the corner on the right side of that rock and drive up the edge. Nope, too much. We did a reset there because the rear tire fell into that gap, which would be an axle snapper. I don't see the point in breaking the truck to avoid touching it. I'm not in a competition. So let's just give the Patagonia a little bit of a minute to search for some traction. Maybe finish knocking the front edge off that lug. Getting rid of the mold release on the tire. These are brand new. I've never run these before. Okay, that was the line I let out too early. Come on, come on. It's not really doing what I want. There's too much bounce there. Oh, we can do it. Yep, saved. That is how you do that line. That's pretty good. I believe that a dual stage foam would have made that a little bit easier, but that's a good showing, and especially for X2 S3, I'm impressed. Now again, we're on sandstone. Sandstone is higher grip than some of you are going to have on what you have in your local area. So this is that area where that 10 or 15% of steering that I'm losing out on with that failing servo doesn't let me take the right angles off the rock. That is identical to what happened with the 1905, and it is a combination of the soft foam and that failing servo, because what I want to do is I want to cut in hard right here, and yes, I want to walk up the sidewall. I don't want to get on top of that rock. I want the sidewall, but the servo cannot it's being overpowered by the traction of the tire. I guess when I made this line, or when I chose this line, I didn't realize that it was so dependent on the servo being strong, but apparently it is. All right, our next obstacle here looks very easy. It's not extremely difficult, but it's a little bit technical. Some tires can struggle with it if they don't have good forward drive and good sidewall grip. Guys, one thing to point out, I know that on some of these angles the camera's a little bit tilted. I'm not trying to make obstacles look steeper than they are. I'm on very, very uneven terrain. No issues there. So one thing that these narrower wheels have helped out with both these and the 1905s is that obstacle's a little easier with a narrow track width. But I'm on very uneven terrain. You can see, I mean, this is what I'm driving and walking around on. I have a $20 Amazon tripod that I have my phone mounted on, and I can only do so much. So I'm not trying to make obstacles look steeper than they are. I know that some people do that, especially in still pictures. They'll try to position a phone to make it look like they're driving straight up and down, and really they're barely driving at all. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be honest with the angles that I'm using. But I'm new to recording videos. I'm new to recording out here. I'm dealing with kind of minimal equipment, and I'm doing the best I can. All right, now my favorite obstacle is this guy right here. I'm gonna stand in a different place than I've stood the last couple times because it's easier for me to see. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. Okay, we're pulled up onto the entry. Now let's pull onto the actual obstacle. Okay, a little more side hop than I love to see. Rear tire collapsing due to that foam, and we roll out. Let's try that again. I haven't seen anything so far that makes me think that this truck is going to fail this obstacle. Sometimes you just have to find a tire's line. There we go. So the only obstacle that we have failed so far was our first side hill, and I really believe that's 100% because of the foam. I think this tire just needs a stiffer foam, but I still don't think that it needs the foam that it comes with, because that foam wouldn't allow the lug to conform to anything. I mean, you could use that foam to prop up your real vehicle to change the oil in it. So right here at this point in the rock, what we're dealing with is the uneven surface of the rock. We're trying to pull over, oh, that's my roll. Trying to pull over some uneven surface on the rocks, which when the front suspension is unloaded, can be somewhat difficult. As I've said in other videos, I used to run front shock bands on this truck. I took them off to put them on a different build that I was working on, and I didn't put them back on. Last night I ordered a set, so this truck will have shock bands on it again. That said, it can do all the obstacles on this course without the shock bands. It doesn't need them, at least for a good tire, to complete the obstacles, but it does make it a lot easier, and I like the way the truck drives with the shock bands better, because you can see how that front suspension is completely unloaded right now. And what the shock bands do is, it's basically just an elastic band. You can make them out of rubber bands or hair ties if you want. The ones I ordered are D's shock bands, D-E-E-Z, maybe D-E-E-Z-E. But you basically just kind of mount it near your front shock, and it's an elastic band that you order them. If you have a 90 millimeter shock, you order a 90 millimeter band, and that means that that band will stretch up to 90 millimeters. It's not 90 millimeters long, it stretches up to 90 millimeters. And so you install that band on the truck by the shock, and it basically just kind of applies equal pressure to the spring rate and pulls down, keeps the front of the truck down. You can install it on all four corners. I prefer only having them in the front because I prefer just, it helps with steep inclines better. So the Patagonias are struggling here a little bit more than they, would be, than a good tire. Well, I shouldn't say a good tire, because these are a good tire. They're struggling a little more than the best tires do. Now we've got on at the wrong angle. And the issue here, in my opinion, is lug spacing. I think that we've got a large lug, but they're spaced close together, and I think that's causing some issues. I do think we're still dealing with a foam issue. I think a firmer foam in the rear would help. I think shock bands would help. I think any of those things would help this tire get up. But they also shouldn't be necessary for a tire to get up. I'm going to give it one more shot. What I'm seeing here is the capability of this tire doing it. I bet you if I stood here long enough and just did this over and over again, we'll eventually get it. Maybe I will. I don't got anywhere to be until I don't have to leave for a couple more hours. But what we keep seeing there is there's not enough forward drive or front grip to pull the rig up, so we're trying to push and we're just bouncing. But if I use really low throttle, if we can overcome the slide, that little bit of slide back that you keep seeing, we make a couple of millimeters forward and then we slide back. If we can have my front tires are not touching the ground. That is where shock bands come in. Now a better tire, it doesn't get you unloaded to that point. I just don't have the grip to do this consistently. I think it's capable of doing it, but I don't know that it is capable of doing it consistently, at least in its current configuration. I think shock bands, I think it would walk up this, which, that's why some people would say shock bands are cheating. I think a different foam in the rear, I think you need like a Crawler Innovations dual stage in these. I think you need a firm inner foam and a very soft outer foam. I think the tire needs that compliance that the single stages are offering. I think it just collapses too much. I think the lug is okay. I think the size of the lug with the spacing and everything, it's not perfect, but I think it's okay. I would be interested to see. These seem like they might be a tire that will break in and get better as we knock off the front edge of that lug. It's always disappointing when the first run up a rock face looks like it's just going to walk right up it. And and then you fall out, and then you can't even get back onto the obstacle. We're going to keep at it for a minute. I really want this tire to succeed at this obstacle, mostly because I think it can do it. I think we just need to find the line that it needs, which seems to maybe be more over like this. Cut back this way. Very slow progress. Need to hook on that little ledge there. Can I? Oh, we're gonna slide back. Yeah, now that's gonna roll out. Maybe not. Maybe not. Set that back down. Yeah. Now we're too much at an angle. Now we can correct it, but I don't think we're gonna get up. Well, okay, wheel speed. All right, we did it. Technically that's a pass. You know, as I've said before, sometimes you gotta drive a tire differently. I think maybe the issue here was not that it needed low and slow, it just needed wheel speed. So that was a pass. Now our next obstacle becomes harder with every pass because the ground gets dug out, and especially with these wheels it's difficult to get on because we don't have the right track width. Let's see if I can set the camera down. What am I hooked on? So what has happened is we have dug this obstacle out enough to where this rock and this rock are causing mechanical hangups on the axle. So we're going to get rid of those old rocks out of the obstacle. Sometimes you just have to do that stuff. I know some people would say that's cheating, but that's a challenge that didn't exist before this started becoming washed out. And rather than just eliminating the obstacle, I would like to eliminate things that don't really have anything to do with the tire. You know, I'm not, if I put a big old 5 1/4 inch tire on here, it wouldn't be an issue, but even with a 475 tire, it can't do anything about the ground clearance. So that's why I take stuff like that out, and I don't think that that's unfair. So now that we've got the front end up these rocks, we got to bump over. Yeah, and it gets harder and harder. Ooh, because you don't have a lot of traction on the dirt below for the bump. But there we go, we're able to do it. And now the rest of our course is more of a short trail drive with some rocks in it, some loose surface in it, and of course we end with a gravel hill climb. Our rock here, we get stuck on that ledge a lot on our, I'm not really sure what gets stuck. I think it's the front links, maybe it's the skid, but I can't even teeter it now. I would like to figure out what is actually getting hung on there. But what you have to do is just try to take it with wheel speed. But it's actually pretty hard because coming off of this rock, there we go. All right, let's go set the camera down. I think about right there. And now up on this obstacle, want to get up. Okay, now we're up on it. Now we've got to position our driver's side tire over here on the edge without going too far. There we go. Oh, don't slide off, don't slide off, don't slide off. There we go. There's a pass. This is what you deal with. That's the edge of that rock. It's a pretty steep drop, and then we have basically very loose dirt and crunched up leaves. So there's not a lot of traction, and you can see on the edge of this rock, that's where it keeps getting hung up. And I think it's getting hung up on the front links. And then the tires are all four of them are completely off the ground. And so there's not a lot you can do. Gravel hill climb, we try with about 40% throttle initially. Patagonia is not liking that. Not liking that at all. Okay, we're going to go to 100% throttle. All right. Patagonia able to do the hill climb, but required full throttle to do so. Better tires can do that with, I find about 35-45% throttle is kind of the minimum required, at least for a class 2. But overall, I think the Patagonias did pretty good on our course. So while we did have some trouble with the first side hill obstacle, I really believe that was pretty much due to the foam. I think the Patagonia needs to have a dual stage foam because I think it needs the firm sidewall, but I think it needs a compliant outer foam. I think you need the tire to be able to bag a decent amount, but I think you need lateral support. I think you need sidewall support. So overall, what do I think about the Milestar Patagonia? Well, it's not going to become one of my favorite rock crawling tires. However, it did better than expected. And if you are building a scale rig and you either just like the look of the Patagonia or you're building like a Matt's off-road recovery rig or something like that, this is a good tire. It's definitely going to be a good trail tire. It does pretty well on the rocks. You need dual stage foams. And because of that, that's the kind of the reason I wouldn't recommend it, is because I think these are like $30 a set, I want to say. And a good set of dual stage foams is you're probably going to be looking at either 3D printed, like a soft single stage 3D printed foam, or you're going to be looking at something like a Crawler Innovation foam. Either way, you're going to be spending close to another $50 on foams. So you're going to be getting upwards of $100 for tires and foams, and that's good money. And you can get better performance using different tires for that same money or less. But again, if you like the scale rig or the scale look of the tire, or you want specifically a Patagonia to build a tribute vehicle, these are pretty good. They did a good job. I was surprised. They definitely have earned themselves a follow-up review. I'm going to put a dual stage foam in them. I will run them again and we will see how it does. And then I even see maybe some opportunity for a minor amount of lug work to see if we can improve some forward grip. So keep an eye out for a video in the upcoming month or two. I'm gonna do another test of these tires, and we will see how they do. Until next time.